Here you go. All right, are y'all ready to get started? I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and we're also filming this for people online to be able to view it now, live, or later with it's a 5-second delay right now, but later they can view it if they weren't able to see it, or if you have some friends that want to watch it. So we'll make sure that everybody gets the link to it. And this is really our first meeting this year, and what we'd like to do first is to kind of select some people that will help us decide what kind of programs to have and kind of lead the accounting club. So we had some people volunteer to be officers earlier, and those are Lauren, Jordan, right here, Chelsea, and Honorio, and Nikki's not here, okay, but she's in the Accounting 1 class. So really probably what we'll do is, if there's anybody else interested in being an officer that plans to be here for a year, this entire year or so, anybody else?
I can help.
You can help. And what's your name?
Will.
Will. What class are you in?
Professor Warler's Accounting Principles 2.
Principles 2, perfect, because you might be here for a while, right?
Well, hopefully not too long.
Okay, Will. Yeah, so that gives us like 6 people. Why don't we just consider that like the executive committee, and these 6 people can divide up the task between, president, etc. Why don't y'all get together, like say next week, and decide who's going to be. I see Lauren's taking notes. That's great.
Oh, I'm signing in.
Never mind.
I take credit for something I'm not doing.
Okay. So maybe y'all can get together next week and decide, elect a president, vice president, that kind of thing, and really, this will be good for your resume later on to put on your resume that you were an officer in the accounting club. And actually, employees love to see that kind of thing. That's one of the things they look for when hiring. So that was really our only order of business today. And I'd like to introduce y'all to Matt Workman. He's the Becker representative. Becker is probably the number 1 CPA review prep course. And so we're really excited to have him here to talk to us about preparing for the CPA exam. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. All right. You know what else looks good on a resume? CPA.
Exactly.
So my name is Matt Workman. I work for Becker CPA Exam Review. Just here to talk to you guys a little bit about the CPA exam, more than anything, answer any questions that you might have about the exam, whether that be the application process, the academic requirements, or the exam itself. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through this presentation. Real quickly, before we get started, I want to just tell you what is sitting in front of you in these information packets. This brochure right here, this is frequently asked questions about the CPA exam. So some of what we're going to cover tonight is listed in here as well, things like the structure of the exam, how it's broken down between multiple choice questions, simulations, the testing windows, when you can sit for the exam, the 4 parts of the exam and the content on each part. You're going to find all that in this brochure. So this is going to be a great resource for you after tonight, something to look back on. The smaller brochure in here is a little bit about the Becker course, what you would get as a student in the Becker CPA Exam Review, and some of the materials that we offer to help you prepare for the exam. And then lastly, there's a little card in front of you as well. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, before we leave here tonight, we're going to do a raffle. And we're not going to give away a full Becker course, but we are going to give away a set of mobile flashcards that can help you prepare for the CPA exam. So we'll give away 1 mobile flashcard download for the folks here in this room and another one for the folks watching online, if that works. All right, so the first thing that that you probably should be asking yourself is, why do I want to become a CPA? Because passing the CPA exam, as I'm sure you've probably heard at some point along the way, it's not something you do casually. It's not easy. It's a very arduous, long process and difficult exam. But for those students and candidates that put in the hard work and pass the CPA exam, you can reap some pretty substantial rewards. And one is obviously employment. So before too long, you're all going to be going through a recruitment process, and you're all going to be sending out resumes and looking to start your careers. And you've already taken one step in the right direction by declaring accounting as your major. Accountants are in very high demand, as you know. So good job right there, right off the bat. But taking it to that next level and earning your CPA license, that's where you really become in demand. It's one of those few licenses right now where the supply really isn't meeting the demand from the industry. And if you look at this slide right here, the one bullet point that I enjoy more than the other is 75% of today's CPAs are going to be retiring over the next 15 years. Right, Joe?
You got it.
So there's a huge window of opportunity right now, and whether that's in public accounting or academia or wherever you choose to let your career take you, there's opportunity, and there's going to be, there's going to be places and firms that need CPAs as part of their succession plan. And really, that kind of starts now with you guys and getting prepared to sit for the exam. So the other thing that the CPA license offers you is it's choices, really. So CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. And commonly, the thought process is, I'm going to earn my CPA and go into public accounting. And many candidates do that. But you might not want to stay in public accounting your entire career. You might not want to go into public accounting at all. And more so than ever, the CPA license affords you that ability to make choices, to provide yourself options, whether it's earlier in your career or later in your career. Forensic accounting, obviously fraud is huge right now. Thank you, WorldCom and Enron, because they just made a bunch of more jobs available for all you guys as auditors. International accounting, environmental accounting, whether it's corporate, government, nonprofit. There's a lot of opportunities as an accountant, but even more so with that CPA license. So being able to open those roads for you, that's something that everybody dreams of in their career, is having options. So again, that CPA license can do that for you. And then, certainly not least, it can be a very lucrative license to hold. I'm sure that must have gone into some of your decision process when deciding to become an accountant, that you're going to make a lot of money. And it's, quite frankly, look at all these rich professors that you're going to have to go. Wrote their Bentleys to work and Lamborghinis. But a recent study by Robert Half showed that over the course of a 40-year career, with compounded earnings, that an accountant with a CPA license is likely to earn about $1 million more over the course of their career than an accountant without their license. So the earlier within your career that you earn your CPA license, the quicker you start making that money and being able to compound those earnings. So, a lot of firms will give you a bonus for passing the CPA exam within the first year. The Big Four all give a $5,000 bonus just for passing the exam within your first year of employment. So, obviously, there are more benefits than just your career options. You'll reap financial rewards as well. So, how do you get there? First, you have to make sure you qualify. Not everyone can just sit for the CPA exam. So you have to meet academic requirements based on the state where you want to license. And we'll talk soon about Georgia's academic requirements. But is everyone in here an accounting major? Anyone getting a degree in something else? All right. Well, when you graduate with your undergrad degree from GSW, you will be qualified to sit for the CPA exam. You need to submit an application to the State Board of Accountancy. Within that application, you're going to need your transcripts, you're going to need your money, and you're going to need to submit a passport photo, which they'll compare with your ID when you go to the testing site. In Georgia, currently, to apply for the CPA exam and sit for each part, you're going to pay about $900 total, and that's if you pass each part the first time you take it. So there's an application fee and an examination fee for each each exam. And there are 4 exams that you'll need to pass. So it's a costly exam to take, you know, so you certainly want to be prepared before you sit for the exam. You know, you want to put in the effort, put in the time before you sit, and make sure that your investment pays off. Right about the time that you submit your application, or maybe even a little bit before, you want to start studying for the exam. What you're really applying for when you submit your application is called a notice to schedule, or an NTS for short. That notice to schedule is only valid for 6 months. So you're applying for the exams that you intend to sit for within a 6-month window. And the reason that's important to know is because there's 4 exams that you're going to need to complete. Most candidates will not pass all 4 exams within those first 6 months. You could, theoretically. It would be a very aggressive study plan. But most candidates might apply for 2 exams within the first 6 months, maybe 3. When you're designing your exam plan, it's really important to know that your exam plan is probably going to be different than yours, is probably going to be different than yours. You have to figure out what's going to work best for you, and by planning it out ahead of time and kind of having a plan, your plans might change, but by having a plan to start with, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money with application fees and things like that if you have it all planned out. But that's kind of the beauty, and it's also the downfall of the CPA exam. The beauty of it is that they let you plan it however you want. You can take any of the 4 sections in any order that you want. You can space them out as much as you want, as long as you pass all 4 within an 18-month period. So everybody can do it a little differently and attack it a little differently, but that's also kind of the downfall of it. There's no strict template you need to follow. So you have to kind of look at what's best for you. You know, if you're working and you're in school and you're trying to sit for the exam and you have a family, it might take you a little longer to pass all 4 parts than somebody who has a summer off and no other commitments. So again, you just really have to kind of be honest with yourself and your study plan. You schedule the exam at Prometric. These are just testing sites. They're not just for CPA candidates. You could go in there and be sitting next to somebody taking a completely different exam. It could be like a Sylvan Learning Center or something like that. So once you get that NTS, what it is, it's basically a PIN code that you would go online to Prometric's website and schedule your exams. So you sit, you pass. Now to actually apply for your license, there's a couple extra things that you need. So you can sit for the exam with 120 credits in your undergrad degree. To apply for your license, you're going to need a total of 150 credits. You're going to need 1 year of work experience, and you're going to need the exam passed. So those additional 30 credit hours, they don't necessarily need to be graduate level credit hours. A lot of candidates will go on to an MBA or a MAC program to get those additional hours, but if you are taking additional courses at the undergrad level or double majoring, something like that, you can accrue the total 150 to apply for licensure without going into a graduate program if you want to go that route. Is there any questions about any of that?
You said $900, is that per test?
No. So it's going to be, the application fee, I believe, is $50, and then each exam, there's an examination fee, and it depends on the section, believe it or not, but that's going to be around $150 to $190 per part. So, yeah, that's the total.
Okay.
All right, so here, the one thing I want to stress is every state has different requirements in terms of your academics. Georgia and Florida are both known as 2-tier states, which means you can sit for the exam with 120 credits, but you will need 150 to apply for your license. Georgia, you actually need to have that undergrad degree conferred. So on your transcripts, it needs to be conferred to you before you can sit for the exam. Within the 120, you're going to need 20 hours of upper level accounting, which that will be satisfied with your undergrad curriculum here. Within the 150, to apply for your license, you'll need a total of 30 hours of upper level accounting. Does that make sense? Anyone planning or hoping to work in a state other than Georgia? One person? Where do you want to work?
Alabama.
Alabama, okay. I have no idea what the requirements are in Alabama. But the takeaway is find out. Find out before you apply for your license, before you, sit for the exam, because they might have some different educational requirements there. But the best thing about this whole thing is you only have to sit for the CPA exam and pass it one time. So if you pass the exam in Georgia and apply for your license in Georgia rather, and you want to go work in New York or somewhere else later on, you can apply for a reciprocal license in another state. You'll never have to pass the CPA exam again. All right, so CPA stands for can't pass again. How do you think you do right now?
So we have a question from the people online, and they want to know if you have to be an accounting major to take the exam.
You do not need to be an accounting major per se, but in the state of Georgia, if you look at the slide, you do need 20 hours of upper level accounting coursework, including coverage in all the major areas like taxation and audit, and 30 hours within year 150 to apply for your license. And those have to be 3,000 level or above. That's basically the definition of upper level. So if for some reason you can accrue all those accounting credits without getting an accounting degree, then sure. Otherwise, there are states that have a little more lenient academic requirements, and you would just have to do a little research either on the Becker website or NASBA.org to find out what states have different requirements.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, the total requirement is 150, and now if we have 120 to graduate to get my undergraduate degree, so will I have 30 more 30 more credits in my master degree?
Sorry, I got everything except that last part.
I mean, will I have more than 30 more credits in my master degree?
Yeah, so any master's program that you choose to enroll in, whether it's a MAC or an MBA, they're going to be generally a minimum of 30 credits, yeah. And if you're interested in taking online courses, whether graduate or undergraduate, to get there, you just want to make sure that that school's accredited from the state that you want to license in. You can certainly choose from a number of online programs, but you do want to make sure it's accredited, so those credits will count. All right, so here's a little bit about the exam timeline. So a couple things to know. The exam can be taken during what they call testing windows. So a testing window is defined as the first 2 months of each quarter. So January, February is the first testing window. March is a closed month. So April, May, that's the second testing window. June, you cannot sit for the exam. So right now we're in October. This is the last testing window of the year. It just opened up, and it'll end at the end of November, and you will not be able to sit during the winter holiday, and then you're looking at tax season come January. So all of that is, again, making sure that you plan out your 4 sections and your 4 exams, knowing all the different things that you're going to have to deal with, whether it's school or work, and the closed testing months. So those months that are closed, which are the yellow months there on the screen, those are months that you really should be studying. And then when the testing window opens up, you want to be ready to sit for at least 1 section during the testing window, and a lot of candidates will try to fit in 2 exams during each testing window. I did mention that you have 18 months to get through all 4 parts. The way that works is from the time that you pass your first part, you have 18 months to get through the remaining 3 parts. If those 18 months elapse and you still have not completed all 4 parts of the exam, that first exam that you took and you passed, that score will expire. You don't want that to happen, because 18 months later, it's probably a different exam, and you're almost going to have to start from scratch at that point. So you're going to hear that a lot, 18 months testing window, like you have 18 months. But you really don't have 18 months, because 6 of those months are closed months that you can't even sit. So that 18-month timeline, that should be a safety net for you. Most candidates will design a plan to get through this whole thing in 6 to 9 months. That's pretty average. 12 months, if you have a lot on your plate, you're working, you have a family, 12 months is fine. 18 months, that's worst case scenario. And besides, think about it. If you're studying for this exam for 18 months, your brain is going to be melted. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be a candidate for 18 months if you can avoid it. You want to find a time where you can really focus for 6 to 9 months and get through it. That's ideal. Any questions about that? All right, so here are the 4 sections of the CPA exam. You have financial, auditing, regulation, business environment, and concepts. You need a 75 to pass each exam. So they call it the 300 Club, 75 times 4, right? You get 4 75s, you're a CPA. You get 4 99s, you're a CPA. So they say if you get a 76, you studied too much. You wasted your time, because you only need a 75. But, you know, so, it's kind of funny, but it's true. I mean, it's kind of true. You obviously don't want to shoot for a 75. You want to give yourself a little cushion there, but the point is, it's pass-fail. If you get a 75, that's what you need to pass. You can take these, again, in any order that you want. You're looking at 14 total hours of testing currently. Anyone in here planning to sit for the CPA exam in 2017 or later? So anyone in here, a junior, sophomore or junior? All right, so you might be looking at 16 hours of total testing. So the exam's changing in 2017, and it's actually getting a little longer. Sorry, not my decision. But I'm gonna address the 2017 changes here in a minute, but this is the current format. These are the 4 exams, and the takeaway here is I'm gonna show you how these sections break down in terms of content and the types of topics that you're gonna see. And there's not gonna be anything really foreign to you. Everything on this exam is textbook-based knowledge, and it's all stuff that you're going to get exposure to here in your curriculum at GSW. So the difficulty lies in just how much material there is and the breadth of the exam. So it's not going to be anything like crazy. It's accounting. It's stuff that you guys know, but you just have to be prepared for any question that might pop up on your exam. And that's where the difficulty lies. So in terms of the structure, you're looking at a lot of multiple choice questions currently, divided into 3 testlets. So if it's financial and audit, you're gonna have a total of 90 multiple choice questions divided into 3 testlets, followed by 7 task-based simulations. And what a simulation is, it's basically a long problem with a series of deliverables that you're gonna need to work through. And it could be like for financial statements, you're gonna have drop-down menus and fill in the blanks. So it could be simple calculations on an income statement. It could be journal entries. It's going to be stuff that you've done in intermediate and financial accounting. But that's how a simulation obviously is going to differ from a multiple choice question. The way these testlets work, you're going to sit down at your computer. It's all computer-based testing. You're going to open your first testlet of 30 multiple choice questions if you're sitting for financial or audit. Within that first testlet, you can jump around if you want. It's a timed exam, so you're not going to be doing a whole lot of jumping around, but there's going to be an opportunity for you to mark questions for review if you want to come back to them later. But within that first testlet, once you close that first testlet and those 30 questions, you cannot revisit it. You open the second testlet and it is what it is. So that first testlet is always going to be what they consider medium difficulty. Based on your performance on that first testlet, your second testlet is either going to be another medium level of difficulty or a difficult level. There's no easy. There's just medium or difficult. So if you're going through the exam and you feel like the questions are getting progressively harder, that's a good thing actually. That means you're doing well, and those harder questions are going to be worth more points. So your strategy should not be to bomb the first section so you get easier questions. That's a bad strategy. Obviously, do as well as you can. And it is a positively graded exam, which means the worst thing you can do is leave any part of it blank. you're only going to accrue points as you get through it. So you want to make sure you're prepared to finish the exam. But honestly, not a concern. Like I speak to our students all the time, and time is never an issue. If you're prepared and if you do everything that we ask you to as a review, and it's more of a matter of working on your test taking skills, because you'll know the material and you'll get through it on time. But putting in the effort on the front end, that's the important part. And then the one thing that's a little different about business you'll see is that the multiple choice questions are weighted heavier, so that's going to be worth 85% of your total score on business. But then you're going to have 3 written communication tasks. So these are a little different than the simulations in that they're going to ask you to write. They're going to have you display your writing skills, and you know, it's not the great American novel, it's not anything, you know, super difficult, but communication is more important than ever in the business world, and accounting included. So the reason this changed, I believe it was in 2010, is a direct response to the industry saying, we need people with proper writing skills that can communicate with clients, that can draft business proposals, and they're going to be expected to write business memos, you know, introductory paragraph, body, conclusion, very succinct. There's even a spell check tool on the exam. It theoretically should be easy points for you, but you still have to be prepared and, you know, make sure that you don't revert back to text speak and abbreviations and bullet points and being able to put together cohesive thoughts. You know, and on the written communication part, it's not so much the content of your answer as it is your writing skills. They're really looking at how well you can communicate. So if they're asking for a business recommendation for a client, you know, as long as you don't put, my recommendation is to embezzle funds and to, you know, hide money and cheat on inventory. Like, you can't write anything illegal, but the content needs to be basic, and then what they're really looking at is grammar, spelling, punctuation, you know, sentence structure, things like that. All right, so I'm going to go over this really briefly because, again, this is in that FAQs brochure, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what you're looking at in terms of content on the exam. Financial, again, a big part of this is financial statements and transactions, but you are going to see government and not-for-profit. So government's tough in the sense that you're going to study a lot of it, and it's worth 10% of one exam, basically. But there's a lot that could fall under the government accounting, you know, the topic of governmental accounting, as well as business law. Business law is the same way. We have 3 classes devoted solely to business law. And I'll just fast forward to regulation real quick. 20% of the exam on regulation is going to be business law, yet we have basically about 12 hours worth of lectures devoted toward it. So a lot of preparation. It's one of those things you have to do to be prepared, because you just don't know what they're going to ask on the exam. Audit. Have you anybody here taken audit yet? That's usually like the last class you take.
Yeah, a few of them.
Yeah. So, do you like it? You saying that because your professor's in the room? So.
They like it better than tax.
Yeah. So, most of what you learned in your auditing class is going to be on here. The one takeaway, I guess, is that all these little subtopics are divided pretty equally. There's really no way to focus on one particular part of the cycle, so you kind of have to prepare for everything there. Regulation, a lot of federal tax, mostly federal tax, but again, you're going to have business law. You're also going to have ethics, the CPA Code of Ethics, legal responsibilities. And then business is that one that's a little bit everywhere. So everything that doesn't fall nicely into financial, reg, and audit kind of falls into the business section of the exam. So you're going to look at these categories. You have economics and corporate governance and information systems. I mean, by the time you sit for this exam, you're going to be probably 4 years removed from your last economics course. So the thing about business is, they like to say it's an inch deep but a mile wide. So it doesn't go really deep into any of these categories. So you don't need to be an economist to pass, you know, to get the economic questions right. But you do need to be prepared on a lot of different topics. And this is one section where I feel like a review course certainly helps, because you could literally have a textbook on every one of these subtopics. But knowing what to study and focusing your time really comes in handy here. All right, pass rates. So these, let me preface this by saying these are not GSW pass rates, they're not Becker pass rates. This is everyone that sat for the exam in the first 2 quarters of 2015. So the first 2 testing windows of 2015. Business, 57%, reg, 50%. Is that higher, or is that better or worse than you thought they'd be? Or about what you thought?
Well, business is higher than I thought.
These are actually awesome. From a historical perspective, these are the highest pass rates have ever been. So you might look at this like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? But it's actually the opposite. What you should be getting out of this is really a very passable exam. And thousands of candidates pass it every year. So I promise you, if you put in the work, you'll pass the CPA exam. It is a lot of time, it is a lot of effort, but it's all textbook based. You can really look at it like another class that you're taking in school, except really long and really hard. But that's why, I always recommend candidates sit for this exam as soon as they're eligible, as soon as possible, because you're already in that academic mode, you're already taking tests, you're already studying textbooks, you're already listening to lectures. That's what the CPA exam is, and that's what studying is. So the further away you get from school and the more you get involved in your career, the more difficult this becomes. But these pass rates should actually be very encouraging to you. They're very high, and most of the candidates that I speak with on a regular basis, the ones that don't pass, it's because they readily admit they did not prepare, they did not put in the time, because it is a big time commitment, or they just had anxiety on test day, and that happens. It happens to the best of us. So if you do fail a part, it's not the end of the world. You can resit for a part as many times as you'd like. The only rules with that are you can't sit for the same part in the same window. So if you sit for audit, say January 1, and you find out, you get your score back maybe toward the end of January, you find out you did not pass, you would have to wait until the April testing window then to resit for audit. So keep that in mind, and you do have to pass all four parts within that 18-month time span as well. So one question I get a lot is, which order is the suggested order for sitting for these 4 exams? And right off the bat, you got to pass them all, one way or the other. So it's not the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life as to the order to sit for them, but probably the most popular recommendation from Becker instructors is to sit for financial first, and for a couple different reasons. Financial, not that it's the most difficult, you'll see it's actually, according to the pass rates, it's audit has the lowest pass rates, but just by a fraction. But financial is the longest. So within the framework of the Becker course, financial is 10 lectures. So that's 40 hours of lectures with accompanying homework and multiple choice questions and simulations. It's going to take you the longest to prepare for financial. So I mentioned before that 18-month clock doesn't start ticking until you actually pass a part. So those candidates that start with financial, you studied all that time for financial and you pass it, now you have 18 months, full months to get through the 3 exams that theoretically should take you less time. So for that reason, it's pretty smart. And secondly, what you study on financial is going to help you on audit. It's going to help you on business. So that's like I said, that's intermediate. That stuff is going to come into play over and over again. So financial, then audit. Audit's a little shorter to study for, but again, obviously difficult. Regulation, and then business. A lot of folks like to end with business. Doesn't have the highest pass rates. It's not to be underestimated or neglected. It's still obviously a difficult exam. But if you do, for some reason, find yourself up against that 18-month window and the clock is ticking and you're about to lose maybe a score, it'd be nice to have business as opposed to financial sitting as your last one, or audit. So a lot of people like to save business to the end. And plus with that writing component, everything you learn through those other 3 sections, you can incorporate into your writing, which is always helpful. Guys have any questions? Any questions from the online folks?
We do have a couple of questions. One is applying for the exam. Do you do that through the State of Georgia website?
Yeah, you'll go to, the easiest way to do it is to go to NASBA.org, and that's NASBA.org. It stands for the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. NASBA will give you the portal through which to apply to any state board in the country, so that would be the place to start.
And another thing they're talking about is how hard each part of the exam is, and one is saying that financial and audit is hard, and someone else said that business and regulation have a lot of memorization. So,
well, it's actually audit, which, you know, from what I hear from our candidates and from our instructors, audit is that section that has a lot of memorization and a lot of mnemonics that will teach you to help remember some of these things. They're all hard in their own way. The thing is, again, and I mentioned this before, everybody's different. So, Lauren, I know you said you love tax. So regulation is probably, you're going to be able to accelerate through the regulation course a lot quicker, because as you get questions right, you don't need to revisit those. You know, you'll be able to get to them faster. But maybe audit, you're not crazy about audit, so you might have to spend a little more time on audit. So really, it just depends on the candidate. You kind of just have to assess for yourself. But again, as you're going through the course and you're studying, those things that you know, you'll get through that part faster. And the things that you are weaker on and where you have deficiencies, you're going to have to spend a little more time. So the beauty is, from a candidate perspective, and obviously I can only talk about the Becker course because that's what I'm familiar with, but we take you from, you know, as if you basically know nothing, as if you have a very elementary foundation of accounting. And the more that you know, and the more that you answer questions correctly, and the more that you can prove that you know, you'll accelerate through it faster. And based on, you know, the diagnostics that are involved and things like that, you won't be studying things that you already have a mastery of. My colleague up in Boston, he had no accounting background whatsoever. He's in civil, and as part of his personal development, he decided he wanted to try to pass the BEC section of the exam using the Becker course, just to see if he could do it. And he did, first try. He knocked it out of the park with a 77. But he put it took him a lot of time, but it proved to himself and proved to me that, you know, anybody can do this if they put in the effort. You really can. He didn't try audit or financial or reg, but. Are there any other questions?
well, there are a couple of questions about the Becker course, so I thought I'd just wait on that.
Okay. Well, it's a good segue, because in terms of pass rates, the one question that I do get a lot is, you know, what about Becker and what are your pass rates and why would I take Becker? The first thing I'll say about pass rates is that as a candidate, no one sees your score. Your professors won't see them, your employer, your parents, unless you choose to, like we as a review provider don't see your scores. So it's all confidential information. So when you see pass rates, you want to ask what the methodology is, how they arrive at those pass rates, because it's pretty hard to put a finger on, quite frankly. But what we do as a review provider to make sure that we're delivering the best possible product, we hire a third party, an independent company to survey students, and every year they come back and tell us that Becker students pass at least double the rate of non-Becker students on the CPA exam. So take that for what you will. I think if you're asking those questions about, you know, why Becker, the two things that I like to point to that I think are, you know, pretty indisputable is we partner with all 100 of the top 100 accounting firms in the country, including all the big four. They all use Becker. So that should tell you something. And then secondly, I don't know if you're familiar with the Watt-Sells Award. The Watt-Sells Award goes to the highest scorers on the exam each year. Now, let me say, this should not be a goal of anyone, because these are not normal people that win the Watt-Sells Award. I'm sorry if anybody online has won the Watt-Sells Award. But, so to earn this award, you have to pass each part the first time you take it, and you have to average a 95.5 score across all 4 parts. Yeah, it's crazy. To give you an idea of how difficult that is, generally there's about 40,000 people that sit for the CPA exam each year. And last year, 59 received the Watt-Sells Award. There were 55 the year before that. So it's not a goal. It shouldn't be a goal. If it happens, awesome. They'll probably rename this building after you, maybe, right? Give you a plaque at least, right? Your employer will give you a nice bonus. The state society will heap praise on you and probably, reward you. But ultimately, you're just a CPA like the person that got 475, quite frankly. But last year, out of those 59 winners of the Watt-Sells Award, 53 were Becker students. And the year before that, 51 out of 55. And over the last decade, more than 90% of the winners have been Becker students. So I would never recommend that be a goal of yours, but I do think it is kind of a testament to how well our course can prepare you if you put in the time. I was just going to go into the exam changes. Is there anything more specific about the Becker course?
Well, whether to do the CDs or video, that sort of thing. I didn't know if you had that programmed in later.
No, well, I can address it. So it's basically a question about what's the best method to study for the CPA exam, the best format. And, well, first of all, we don't have CDs anymore. So the technology has changed significantly over the years. It used to be, when Becker first started, candidates, is my time up?
No, that sounds better.
Candidates would be like on a reel-to-reel, and we started live Becker courses in the basements of churches, and that's how people learn. And progressively, it got better, and we started with, using cassette tapes and then CD-ROMs, and just about 3 years ago, we went completely online. So if you were to enroll in Becker, you just get a username and password to access all of the software, and you can download it onto multiple devices, and you can access it from anywhere. Once you get on, so even if you have it downloaded and you're not online, once you get online, it would sync all your statistics across your multiple devices. The only physical thing that you would receive are the textbooks still. So for each section of the exam has its own physical textbook. You also get an ebook if you prefer that. So the technology is much better than it's ever been. But your options as a Becker student is the online course or a live classroom. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any live classrooms real close to Americus. Atlanta would be the closest live class that we have. So for other candidates that might be watching this elsewhere, basically any major city, we're probably going to have a live classroom. Otherwise, online is probably the way to go. But we've shown that there's no difference in success rate, honestly, between the online and live class. It's all the same material. It's all the same learning approach. The only real difference in a live class is that you just don't have distractions. So if you're studying at home, I know me personally, during football season, I would never be able to sit there and set aside time on a Sunday, or, my refrigerator's right there too, which is pretty distracting. You just have to figure out a way to eliminate distractions. That's all the live class does, quite frankly. You get all the same academic support as an online student. You'd be able to ask all your questions to one of our online instructors.
Do you want to talk about the price, the cost?
Do I have to?
Yes.
Okay. So, The price of the review course for the Becker course, for all 4 parts, is currently $3,393.
Oh, good. That's better than what they guessed.
What were they guessing?
Yeah.
Like 10 grand?
4,000.
No, it's $3,393, and that includes everything. Very soon, we're gonna be offering a $400 discount to GSW students. The other option, if you really decide Becker gives you the best chance to pass, this is your career we're talking about. It's like, you don't want to do bargain LASIK surgery or something like that. You want to, invest in yourself, invest in your career. We do offer 18-month 0% financing, so you can pay over 18 months, and it works out to be about $200 a month if you do it that way at 0% interest. We have the GSW discount, and then we also have a scholarship program that will be launching again. We do it every year, and we'll be launching it again toward the end of December. It's called the Newton D. Becker Scholarship, named after our founder. And we offer a number of full scholarships and a number of partial scholarships to the program, and it's needs-based. So be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely let you know. So find a way, I would say, and all else fails, send me an email. Let me know, and I'll let you know if we have any special programs going on. I could ask you some questions, like if you're related to military folk or anything like that, and find some discounts for you that might be able to help. But yeah, find a way. Anything else? All right, so I know a lot of you are going to fall into this, and this is the 2017 exam changes. So this is, a lot of people are talking about this because there are going to be big changes to the format and the way the exam is administered. Now, accounting doesn't change, so it's not anything to get too worked up about, but it is something to be aware of if you are going to be falling into this window. So it's looking like, anticipated, it's going to be changed during the second quarter of 2017. It's going to be longer, so all the exams are going to be 4 hours, so a total of 16 hours of testing. And it's really a response to having more practice-oriented skills as opposed to just textbook-based knowledge. So the way they're going to do that is to reduce the number of multiple choice questions and increase the number of simulations. So that's probably going to be the biggest noticeable change, is less multiple choice, more simulations. So, less guessing, more knowledge. It is what it is. The intent, I'll tell you this, the intent is not to impact current pass rates. It's not to make it harder. It's not to see pass rates drop. It's really, the intent is to make you better prepared for your careers in accounting. So it's really a good thing, believe it or not. But generally, when there's a major overhaul like this, you do see pass rates dip a little bit until the market acclimates and people get familiar with it. So, if you can sit for parts before these changes happen, it might be a good idea. And, quite frankly, those parts that are getting longer, if it was me and I had a chance to sit for the 3-hour exams before they became 4-hour exams, I might consider that. You still want to make sure you give yourself ample time to prepare and don't rush it, but if you're on that fence and you're thinking about, do I want to really start sitting for the exam now? You might want to lean toward now before the changes take place, because, quite frankly, that saying, like, I'd rather deal with the devil that I know as opposed to the one I don't know. We know what we're dealing with there, and we've been very successful on it, and candidates have as well. You saw those pass rates. There's just a lot that we don't know yet about the 2017 exam changes. So I would recommend everybody, if you're interested in keeping up to date on those, you could do a Google search for Becker 2017 exam changes and find our website. There's a place for you to sign up where you can get notified anytime there's an update on the 2017 exam. So I highly recommend doing that. But honestly, I wouldn't put a whole lot of worry into it, because it is what it is. I mean, we'll be prepared to teach you, and we'll be prepared to learn it, and you won't know any different. You won't know any different. All right, here's my email address. Please reach out if I can ever help, if I can ever answer questions, whether it's about the application process, the exam itself, about Becker, about enrollment, materials, discounts, scholarships, any questions that you might have, please just shoot me an email. I'll try to help you. If I can't, I'll find somebody that can help you. And just know that, it is a difficult exam, but you do have resources. You have help. You have your faculty here at GSW. You have me. Please email me anything. Talk to recruiters. Talk to employers. Find out, what they say about it, what they use to pass the exam, any tips. You have access to a lot of great resources. Use them. You'll get through it, I promise. Any other questions at all?
Again, the new exam starts in January of 2017?
Anticipated second quarter of 2017.
Okay.
So will the Becker classes still be the same, or will they change too?
Well, so we have, twice a year we meet with the AICPA to kind of stay ahead of the curve on all the changes and content. I'll give you an example, because right now our financial course we're releasing a new version of it next week on October 27th. And for those students sitting for the exam January 1 or later, they will get the new version. So we're always going to be a couple months ahead of what they're actually going to see on the exam. So when those exam changes come out, if you're currently a Becker student at that time, your software license as a Becker student is valid for 18 months. So within that 18 months, you get all the changes included. So when the course updates to include all the new exam changes, you'll just download the new updates, depending on your exam date. If you're sitting before the change, you'll have access to the old stuff. If you're sitting after the change, you'll have access to the new stuff.
Matt, what happens if somebody messes around and takes longer than 18 months to get through the whole process? Does their materials that they've purchased go away if they?
So from the Becker materials.
Okay, can they re-up again, maybe at a discount or something like that?
Yeah. So thank you for asking. Yeah. So we offer what we call the Becker Promise, which means if you do everything you're supposed to do as a student, and that means watch all the lectures and complete 90% of the homework correctly. So that means keep doing the homework until you have 90% accuracy. And for some reason you don't pass the exam, I'm pretty sure you're going to pass the exam, but for some reason if you don't, you can re-enroll tuition free. So it's basically about holding up your end of the deal. If you do everything we ask you to do as a candidate, and on exam day you just freeze and anxiety takes over, you can re-enroll tuition free. Yeah.
I know the result of the test after I take one.
It usually takes about, give or take, about 3 weeks or so. If you go on the AICPA website, AICPA, these are the folks that create the exam, American Institute of CPAs. They write the questions. So I highly recommend going to their website. They have a student portal called thiswaytocpa.com. You can sign up for a free student membership. This is a no-brainer. Free student membership. You're getting information right from the source at this point, and you can see there's actually like a formula. Like if you sit in the first 10 days of a testing window, you're going to have your score by this date, which is generally about 3 weeks later. But there's a little formula based on when you sit in the testing window as to when you'll receive your score. But I highly recommend going to their website. You can look at all the content, what they call content specification outlines. It'll scare you because it's everything they could possibly test you on, and that's the beauty of the review course. Like, we're going to tell you what you need to know and not what all the volumes of information that you could know. But that is the source. I mean, that's where we call through that stuff, and we design our course from their materials. So I highly recommend doing it. You can find out taste competitions and scholarship opportunities and networking events and, yeah, AICPA. Definitely check it out.
What percent of Becker students are at the undergraduate level as opposed to graduate level?
Well, you can't sit for the exam in most states until you have your undergrad degree.
Right.
So most of our students are going to have their undergrad degree, because the majority of candidates now will get their undergrad degree and enroll in a review course almost right away, within the first 3 months of graduating.
So not very many go and get their graduate degree and then take the exam?
It used to. There's no perfect way, but I think the trend is more candidates are taking the exam concurrently with their grad program. If you have a summer off between undergrad and grad school, no better time than to start knocking out parts of the exam. But even if you roll right into a grad program, I think most candidates are now sitting for the exam during their grad program, and a lot of grad programs are incorporating CPA review into their curriculum. The employers want you to be done when you come to work, because then your time is all theirs, and they're not sharing it with the CPA exam. So when you're going through the recruiting process, they're going to ask you, what's your exam plan? And what they like to hear is, I plan to have it done by the time I graduate. It's not always the case, and everyone, again, maybe your situation doesn't dictate that you can do it that way, but more and more, that's what candidates are doing, yeah. So, and as soon as you're eligible, honestly, it's when you're going to have the most success. Because once you start working, and particularly if you go into public accounting, it's not just a 9-to-5 job. It's, it's long hours, and the last thing you're going to want to do after work is then study for the CPA exam for 4 hours. Particularly when your colleagues are going to cocktail hours and networking events and philanthropy and things like that, and you're going to be a guy saying, can't go, got to go study. So the sooner the better, really. That's the best advice I can give you. But again, you're going to have an opportunity to talk to a lot of firms, a lot of recruiters during the next couple of years. Ask them what they want, because that's whose money you're going to try to get, right? So find out what they suggest, and more often than not, they're going to want you to get through it quickly. That's why they reward it, quite frankly. That's why they reward you passing it earlier rather than later. Any other questions?
Once you pass all 4 parts, how long do you have to get that all the other requirements before those parts expire?
That's a good question. So that does vary by state somewhat. Generally, it's 3 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong in Georgia. I know in Florida it's 3 years that you have. So once you pass that 4th exam, you have 3 years to then apply for your license. So within that 3 years, you need to accrue the additional credit hours and get that 1 year of work experience. I would double check that, because it does vary state by state, but that's generally the time frame that you have to apply for your license. So the exam is definitely the hardest of those 3. Once you pass the exam, you'll get your 1 year work experience. It's just a matter of then, again, if you haven't figured out your plan to get those additional credit hours, you want to do that. Make sure you don't let that slip through the cracks. Any other questions? You feel better or worse now that you came here tonight? Hopefully better. It is very possible. Lots of students do it every year. So it's just a matter of putting in the time, and it will pay off, obviously. Where you're at now, it's a pretty crucial juncture, you're making decisions that are going to affect your career, going to affect the rest of your life. So a CPA is one of them. Whether you're going to pursue it or not, it's a big decision, and then once you decide if you want to do it, putting in full effort, because nothing that's worth having really comes easy, but it is a big accomplishment. It's a benchmark in the industry. It's a very prestigious license to hold, and there's a reason for that. You know, it's really, you know, the pinnacle of an accountant's career. So I would highly recommend it, but I am biased. All right, well, if you don't have any questions, if you guys want to pass those raffle cards up here, we'll give away some stuff and let you get on your evening.
Do you have an extra one?
Yeah, of course.
You can't write two.
I'm not. Gentleman down here did not get one.
He came in late, a little bit late, so.
Trying to
Oh,
There's a pen.
do you need a hand?
Matt, the folks online just said how much they enjoyed the program and how much they appreciate your help and that they feel a lot better about it now.
Good.
Yeah.
I like the online folks.
Yeah.
Earlier when I was talking to you, you said that the pass rate is higher for students in their like early 20s and then in their 30s, because in the middle is where you're getting a job and you're having a family and things like that, right?
Yeah, so NASBA releases a report every year with a bunch of statistics, and one of the things that they show is that candidates, and I hate to equate this to age, even though that's what the graph is, but it shows that candidates under the age of 23 perform at a very high rate, and then you see pass rates dip a little bit into the age of 30, and then they start ticking up again. And I really think more so than age, it has to do with where you are in your life. You know, younger folks generally have less commitments, you know, less, you know, you're not working as much maybe, you don't have a family, you know, so that's really the best time. Once you start having all these different things pulling at your time, that's the hardest time to sit for the exam, and you'll see a direct correlation with the pass rates. So the easy answer to the best time to study is when you have the most time to devote. That's generally sooner rather than later. It just happens that way, you know. The older you get, the more things that you have going on, whether that's, you know, getting married, having a family, going to work, taking off to Vegas on a whim, whatever.
You mentioned that a lot of firms partner with Becker.
Sure.
What about like local or regional? Does that make up a lot of that number, or?
It does. So any employer, I'm glad you brought that up. So if you're interviewing or going to a career fair or a meet the firms or any sort of event like that, it's a very reasonable and legitimate question to ask how that employer is going to support you to become in your journey to become a CPA or in your career goal to become a CPA, because I wouldn't just ask it like, hey, will you pay for my review? You know, be a little more tactful than that. But, you know, because what happens is if by earning your license, you become exponentially more valuable to your employer. If they're sending you out to do an audit or to do somebody's taxes, they're going to bill that client a lot more because you're a CPA than what they would invoice them if you're not. So, and quite frankly, it is a license, not just a credential. So you need a CPA license to sign off on financials. So you're bringing more value to your employer. You're making the firm more valuable. So it is in their best interest to help you become a CPA, and that's why most firms will do it. Now, obviously the Big Four, McGladrey, Grant Thornton, they all pay for everything. But as you start getting into some of these regional firms like Carr, Riggs, Ingram, CRI, yes, they pay for it. I can't name every firm, but you know, some of the firms we work with here locally.
The Draft Tucker and Albany both do.
They have programs. Every firm, I hate to say unequivocally, we partner with Malden & Jenkins and Draft Tucker. Every firm's a little different. Some will pay everything up front through a direct bill relationship. Others will pay for everything and then like do payroll deduction from your paycheck, so you reimburse them. Others will have you pay for it and then reimburse you after passing the exam or with a bonus. So it's worth the question, and it actually shows that you're serious and you want to become a CPA. So I think it's a smart thing to actually bring up when you're talking to recruiters. But everyone's just a little different. But yes, definitely more so than ever. Smaller firms, government agencies. I know the Florida auditor pays for it.
Georgia Department of Audit gives a bonus.
Yeah. Corporate accounts. I just had a meeting with the Florida Tourism Department, and they're paying for all their accounting staff for their review materials. So it's not just public accounting anymore. That CPA license is valuable in many industries. So yeah, definitely. And if you have questions about a very specific firm that you're interested in, email me and I can look it up for you. All right, do we have all these raffle cards? All right, so what we're going to give away, we'll give away one here first and then one for the online folks, is a set of mobile flashcards to help study for the CPA exam. So these are used as a supplement to the Becker review course. And what it is, so you know what flashcards are. Traditional flashcards, we sell them, and they come in a big box of over 1,000 flashcards, and it weighs like 15 pounds, and it's ridiculous. And some people love them, and still prefer them. But we also now have mobile flashcards that you can download to your smartphone or your tablet, and that way you can always be studying for the CPA exam, except when you're driving or in class. But other than that, you can always be studying, and it's really cool. And if you can actually go to the iTunes Store or Google Play and download a sample of flashcards for free if you wanted to do that. But that's what we're going to raffle off. It's a $99 value if you had to buy them, so I think it's pretty good. Professor Robinson, would you like to do the honor? Pick your favorite student.
I'm sure it's a business reply thing, so I have no idea. William Moncrief.
All right. So William, thank you for writing legibly. You will get an
Why do you think
email.
it's legible?
You'll get an email with instructions on how to redeem those, and that doesn't expire. So if you are not ready to sit for the exam for a couple of years, that's fine. You know that you have this in your back pocket when you're ready.
Thank you.
Keep up with it.
All right. Do you have that list of?
I do. Now, some of these people didn't actually sign in and may not be listening right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Do not need to be present. All right. So let's see here. Let me just number these right quick.
Okay.
All right, so we need a number between 1 and 27. Oh. 13. That will be Mandy Marie Rock.
Okay.
If you're listening, congratulations. Mandy will also receive a set of mobile flashcards. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Please email me if you come up with any questions that you didn't think of tonight, or anything real specific. I'll stick around for a few minutes if you want to chat. But other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Also, Lauren is the Becker representative for the school. So if you want to ask her a question, she can get an answer too.
And once you start studying for the exam, you're going to need a lot of these highlighters. So hit Lauren up and I'll give her a supply.
I think I tried to make sure everybody got one and a pen too. So.
Okay. Thanks so much,
All right.
Matt. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.